Hi, and if you're just tuning in, welcome to my show. My name's Laura Lee Potvin, and you're listening live to the Angel Rock on UPRN Radio 107.7 as well in New Orleans. My show a little bit, if you haven't been here before, I'll let you know a little bit about it. It presents an illuminating, positive perspective, removing some of the shadow and mystery and all things within the paranormal spectrum. We can go anywhere from angels to aliens, ufology, time travel, and alternative realities, paranormal entities to cryptids, sometimes talk about a little bit of legend and lore, a lot of times talk about some hauntings, including our own house, because we've been through severe haunting probably for about the past 11 plus years. We've been on Paranormal Survivor recently, season 4, episode 9. Might talk about that tonight with my special guest. Might talk about some conspiracy theories, which we are going to talk about tonight. As well as I also share my knowledge as a light worker, psychic medium, have some fantastic guests. No show's ever the same, so we keep a well-balanced mix that is fun. We love to hear from our audience out there. If you're joining us on UPRN, on many of the areas that we stream on, feel free to join us as well on UPRN's YouTube channel, because that's where you can see us live on video and interact with us in the chat room there. We'll be able to see your questions, comments, and without further ado, I want to introduce my very special guest this evening. We know you may have heard him when I've been on radio in the past. His name is The Del. We call him that. That's his nickname. He's my husband, and he's joining me tonight. So welcome, Del.
Hello. Long time no hear from.
What's that?
Long time no hear from.
Yeah, long time no hear from. Thank goodness for, got to give a huge shout out to my producer and owner of the station, Joe Montaldo. He's so patient. He works with us, getting us connected. And of course, he did get us right on time here on the station. So thank you, Joe. So just a little bit for some of you that don't know this, we are in Canada. We live in northwestern Ontario in a city called Thunder Bay. It's in the province, like I said, of Ontario. We're about 40 minutes away from the Minnesota border. About six and a half hours away north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it is a holiday weekend here actually in Canada. As I understand it, unless Del has a better understanding, the reason why is our summers are fairly short in Canada. So it's almost like we have to have a long weekend every month of the summer. Would you not agree, Del?
Yep, that's pretty much true.
Yeah, this is called the civic holidays. So, it's usually the first weekend in August. Actually, I didn't realize, I don't get the newspaper. We actually have in our city a huge Italian festival that goes on this weekend as well. Half the city turns out for. So, like I said, today's a holiday. So we thought, you know what we're going to do tonight? We're going to have a little bit of a potpourri, if you will. But the name of the show, we said, is there's 3 topics that we all sort of know as social graces that we don't discuss when you're at a party or a public function. And part of it, I said, why not? So, Del, would you be so gracious to kind of bring up, we were talking about this a little bit before, some of these 3 topics that you don't discuss.
Well, there don't to be is that topics that you never talk about because they always end up into fights, I guess you would say.
Discussions.
Are religion, politics, and money.
Yeah, but we were talking about this earlier, and we're going to go all over tonight as well as folks. Feel free to join. I should remind you there is a call-in number. I am a psychic medium as well. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, spiritual teacher, many things like that. So if you feel like maybe you need a message from Spirit at all, feel free to call in, or you got a question, comment, or something to add to the discussion. The number is 504-273-7379. Or if you can't call in, feel free to type it in the YouTube chat room on the UPRN radio network on YouTube. You can see us, like I said, on video, and the live chat is there as well. But we were talking about this, Del, and we said, like, I understand it can get into heated discussions, but what topic should we bring up first? Because we're going to give a little bit of a different perspective from it that maybe you might be able to sometimes have a discussion that looking at a different perspective, maybe, or being able to see other people's perspectives, right? Did you lock up on me there?
Oh, I just sort of missed you there partly through.
Well, what I mean is, what do you want to start with tonight? Should we start with looking at religion or politics? I think we were looking at religion, but were you thinking about money? What one of those 3 were we going to touch on first?
Well, I guess you can talk about religion there, and I know I was thinking about this earlier. There, it said like these are just opinions I have and stuff like that. They're not fact or anything like that. They're just theories and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like if everybody believed exactly what I believed, like the world would be an awesome place. But,
According to your views, and that's what everybody thinks. That's why you get into heated discussions, right?
that's true though. But also out of that though, if everybody believed exactly what I believed, then there'd be no growth either, right? It would just there'd be you need that sort of that conflict, that yin yang sort of thing there for any sort of progression in knowledge and stuff like that to go through, right?
Well, some of the things we were talking about that brought us up kind of on this topic was we were even looking at, Dell and I actually do a lot of different research on different topics, and I happened to be looking at Scientology. And what my thing was, there's somebody I follow on YouTube. I think he calls it Mangoology or something, his channel. And he apparently was probably a Z-lister young actor, new to Hollywood, sort of led a sheltered life and got really hung up within Scientology. And then I guess he just recently posted a video within the last week or two. And he was talking about how another new stars in her eyes type of young starlet coming to Hollywood had got pulled into Scientology. And she ended up filing a report with the Los Angeles police that she had been detained against her will. And as we were talking about this, we realized, with Leah Remini and Mike Rinder coming out with their quite popular series, I think it's on A&E, and they're exposing Scientology with all of these people that are coming out of the woodwork, sharing the same stories, and nothing seems to happen with it. Love to hear what's your thoughts on that, folks. If you're listening, or even Del, why do you think that happens? What do you think's gone on with that? Why nothing's really been done about this at all?
Well, I think the part there with the Scientology stuff, with the Leah Remini thing coming out there, is that a lot of people have sort of become aware where they weren't aware before. And this all goes back to a part there, is that like when Scientology came out, I think it was with L. Ron Hubbard in the 60s, or might have been the 50s or the 60s, when he wrote Dianetics. And there wasn't a huge, we didn't have the internet back then either, right? Where people are getting a mass amount of information.
Right.
And so a lot of people didn't know what was going on with, that's just what happens with a lot of other religions or fringe religions, or AKA cults and stuff like that. It all depends on how you want to put them. But people don't have that sort of that access to information, whereas now it's readily available, even though that information is highly what I believe is censored in a way.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic though anyways. But thing is that I guess it's almost like it's getting to be is that something ends up being something big, like about, okay, well, we find out that there is this religion, or whatever you want to call Scientology, or such like that, and the information is already out there. Like, we live in this really fast culture where we want the information right now. Okay, we've heard it, and now when somebody else is going, well, hey, look, we've already heard this story before. We want new information. We want something new about it, right? It's already been in my mind anyways, it's sort of already been beaten already, right? So when somebody else new comes out with the same stuff that we just heard, everybody's like, okay, well, we've already heard this already. Like, we're not really going to put a big, huge deal or expend any time into really caring about it.
No, but I guess what my thoughts were getting to, and I'd even left a question on this gentleman's YouTube channel because I understand it was triggering for him, and he ended up sort of sharing more about his experience about, what he had felt like when he couldn't leave or whatever had happened with him. It was a longer story. But I'm going to go down the conspiracy theory, or quote unquote conspiracy theory rabbit trail here. But why is nothing being done? Like, if somebody has all these police reports are being filed, if the leader's wife has been missing, is it 13 years now, Shelley Miscavige? It's a known fact. Even like you said, even if people are coming up with the same stories and it's not so sensationalistic or anything like that, why is nothing being done? Like the way I look at it is it because maybe some of the higher ups within the organization have infiltrated some of the legal system or judicial system? Because if you think about that, a missing person that has not been seen, there's not really been any proof. And again, no, I haven't walked into the Scientology Center and been told that myself, but that concerns me that there's people missing. And this is a pretty high figure person, and nobody's produced her in any way, shape, or form. How do you get away with that?
Well, so that's the whole thing with religion, and this is my own opinion. I have a big problem with religion. Like I'm spiritual. I believe in God and Jesus and stuff like that. But religion, there's a big, huge part that nobody wants to ever delve into, right? Because then it goes against the programming of what you've learned as a little kid, or what your parents have given you, or what your school or your church has given you. And everybody, like I've thought about this a lot, there is that history is always written by the controlling force. And when you start asking questions into any type of religion and stuff like that, where you're questioning in it, and you're such a person that's not in a position of power, you're usually always chastised or told, don't worry about it, don't ask questions, right? And that should give you a red flag to anything, like any religion that isn't upfront and telling you what their whole basis end point to beginning point is, but then they also want to start charging you money to get information. That should be like a huge red flag. Like, I should be staying away from this, because learning spirituality and stuff like that shouldn't cost you a penny. That should be free form knowledge, right? Like God knows everything, as so to be, or the spiritual almighty, or whoever you want to believe that it is, and it shouldn't cost you anything. But that's where you get into slippery slopes when you deal with religions. Religions sort of, they always work hand in hand with government, and government doesn't want to tackle any part of religion, right? Because once you start going against that, there's such a huge force where they can tribalize against whoever starts looking into them. And this is what a big area of stuff has been happening there lately, not just with, say, Scientology, but also with the Catholic Church and with other religions too as well, where there's been misconduct, but it's always quieted up, right?
Yes.
Nobody wants to get into that. Nobody wants to get into that sort of circumstance and talk about it, especially if it goes against what you've been programmed to believe, right? And so anytime that you start questioning things is when people start getting up in air, because people want to know what their ultimate goal here is on Earth. People want to know what is it all about. Somebody gives you an answer that sort of suits your needs at that time, or search you into a path that maybe it does benefit you at this time. They don't want to go against that because they have this feeling of it might be bad luck and maybe I'll end up in hell, right? Maybe I'm doing something against, because they don't question the people that are telling them the information. And with religions, when there's stuff like this, there's been lots of allegations against the Scientology part with abuse, missing people, and them dox people, and what they used to call fair play, where
fair gaming
and stuff like that. People don't want to deal with the repercussions of being hassled anymore. It's like, hey, you just know, hey, that's a toxic area to go into, and is it worth my time to really worry about it? Who else is worrying about this person besides a friend, right? And they've been, if the government was really interested that this was a missing person, they would send people in to go in person.
That was my point. I guess why not? And
about it?
No. But there's no benefit to be gained probably from it either, right?
No, well, that's the whole part. Is like, you look at what Scientology did to become a religion. What they did was they went around and they forced, because they owed taxes and that, they went and filed lawsuits against the revenue agency, like thousands and thousands of lawsuits against them, to tie them up in court, which would cost millions and millions of dollars, and this went over like 10 to 15
Yeah.
years or 20. So I can't remember what it was. And you know what? And the government just said, you know what? They just gave in. They said,
Yeah.
hey, well, you know what? We just don't want to deal with your bullshit anymore. We'll
Uh,
just make you
bull crap. Yeah. Mhm.
and they just allowed it to go. And that's a big thing that ends up happening that I've seen there, is that with religions throughout the history of time, right?
Mhm.
Is that religion is always tied to not invading, a force or a country that's in power, right? It's always sort of hand in hand, always, right? And it's always, the whole thing is about people want to know what's going to be their end game, right? And if somebody's saying, hey, well, if you follow our rules, you're going to have a great life after you leave this one.
Mhm.
And so nobody knows what the end game is.
No, we
Everybody
don't.
but the thing is that, pardon my word there, sheeple, and a lot of people, I'm not saying all people, so if anybody says, I'm not talking about you, I'm just saying
In
a
general.
lot of people in general they don't bother to do any research. They don't bother to look into things. They just take things at face value or what other people sort of say, and they don't research it on their own, right? Because we are a very lazy people, not you, but a lot of people just.
I don't know if I call it lazy. I think what it is that a lot of times when you find something that resonates with you and you find a group that you resonate with, and it almost feels like an extended family, and especially if you're happy with the status quo, there's no reason or impetus to look outside of that or to look further.
Yeah.
I would think that would be more about it, because usually, at least the people that I meet, because again, I've mentioned earlier being a spiritual mentor and teacher, the people that I meet, for whatever the reason may be, some people are just want to know. They want to know, and they're not satisfied with the answers they've seen, and they're looking further and further and further. And again, I think you touched on a really good point, that we're never going to know the answers. And I think that that's something to really think about. And you also brought up a good point. It's not just Scientology. There's a lot of different religions, or again, the word cult has been associated with Scientology, which is something I happen to be looking at today. But we see that with any kind of organization. But I think if you're happy with the status quo and you feel a sense of belonging, especially a lot of people even I meet that'll, come to me for a reading, or, need some guidance from spirit. And I'm very careful about whatever their higher power is. I always say it's not my job to judge. That's not why I'm here. I'm just a messenger. And usually what they're looking for, they're either kind of at a crossroads, they're not sure what direction to take, what place to go. And again, can I give them all the answers? No. I always tell people, take what I share with you, and if it resonates with you, great. And if it doesn't, leave the rest. What doesn't? And again, just for people out there, psychics aren't 100% right. Neither are mediums. We never are. We're human too. But, even I guess what my final question, because we got a few topics we're going to discuss tonight, but with religion, I guess for me, maybe this would be utopia, but it'd be a beautiful thing if we could just respect that some of us are going to agree to disagree, right? Because some people have great beliefs. I guess the only problem I have is when you've got somebody that's got a strong belief in something, but it excludes everybody else. That's what hurts me. I think that's when we get into, they say don't discuss it at parties, because you could have some really differing belief systems. Instead of agreeing to disagree, it ends up usually getting heated. What's your thoughts on that? Why it happens at a party? What would be the best way, maybe, that could have an open discussion but not get into a heated one?
Well, that's the thing, is that why religion, I guess, is a sore point for some people, right? Because people want to work with what they've believe is what they've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether grew up in it,
Mm-hmm.
or they found something that works,
Mm-hmm.
I always sort of look back to it is that say you're out fishing and this guy's out there and he's catching lots of fish,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy who's catching the fish says, "Oh, well, I use this, and I pray to Jehovah every time I cast a line, and I catch a fish every time." So you do that, and you don't say Jehovah, but you use the exact same lure. You don't catch anything, but then the time you cast it in there, you say that, and you catch a fish. You're going to go, make something to that. You're not looking at all the angles of everything that it is, that it could be coincidence, but that ends up being something that it sticks to you. Go, okay, well, that's powerful, right? It's like the whole thing, the monkey see, monkey do. Hey, well, if it works for them, and this is what it is, they're benefiting from it. Maybe I can benefit the same way, right? That's the whole part that I was saying, that people are looking that in a way that they're sort of lazy, in that way they just, hey, it works that way, let me just keep on following that way. And a lot of part there is that you got to figure from the early part of their family unit was a very strong thing. It's not as strong, I think, today as what it used to be. And the thing was that you believed what your parents told you and what their parents said, and you followed whatever you believed what they believed. You never thought any different from that. So when you're sort of ingrained with that sort of programming, I'll say, like, the programming is a really weird word, but I'll use some buzzwords that just to sort of put the point there, is that when you're taught that sort of way, you believe that sort of way. And that's the sort of way that these cults work, is like, even with the Scientology part, is that it's a way of programming. And when they use that e-meter and stuff like that, that's a self-programming yourself into believing what you're being told, right? Because you're believing yourself and you're sort of programming yourself. I think they would mention in some way, it's sort of like a CIA mind control trick that was used, And you got to figure L. Ron Hubbard, who was a science fiction writer, and he was also in the Navy. He was kicked out of the Navy, dishonorable discharge, and then there was medical stuff, and he had friends that were dealing with CIA stuff and with programming, MK Ultra people that he knew and stuff like that. So he took all these things in, and that's how he wrote his Dianetics book. That's just a really quick sort of synopsis of it. He created something to go against what his own beliefs were, that he could create a better human by going against all of medicine. Like, he didn't believe in psychology. He didn't believe in medicine, like pills and stuff like that. Yeah. And that he could do this better than everybody else, and he created this religion out of it. And this is where I guess the problem goes into with the rest of it that gets out there, and you'll see about it, is that Scientology, basically, you have to pay for levels, right? And that's what I said before, is that any religion that doesn't tell you the whole part of it at the beginning, but makes you pay for each step, well, you can't learn the next step unless you give us money. You should be walking away from places like that, because that's a rip-off, a scam. Because religion.
Think about this. I'm going to throw this out there, though. But when we go to get schooled or educated, we have to pay more and more money. Maybe somebody uses that analogy with because as I understand it, when they first get you coming in, and again, it was just something I did my homework on today, with this particular organization, a lot of young and up-and-coming actors come in for communication courses or things that are going to help you with your acting career, and then you kind of get signed up further and further. And there's different levels. Like, if you sign up with the Sea Org, you're signing up a billion-year contract with them, and then that's when it gets really, really advanced. I agree with you, though, because it does cost more and more money, and then you don't find out, and this is people that have been in the higher levels that we've done our research with, that you find out that it's something about some character named Xenu at the end of it, but you don't find that out at the beginning. I hear what you're saying. You don't hear what the whole agenda is until you put quite a bit of time and money into it, right?
Yeah. Well, there's I guess in a way you could say that there is some good things to it. There is parts out of that Dianetics which help you to become sort of to learn and to, I guess, make your life better or understand your life better in certain ways. Like, there's certain skill stuff that you could learn, but the whole part of it, there's a real shady part to all the rest of it, But that's how they draw you in to the beginning, right? They give you a little flash. Hey, your life can be better. You can be positive. You'll see growth and stuff like that. And you look at that, and then they suck you in with the rest of it, That's just basically how a cult works, right? They give you the flowers, but they don't show you the soil and behind the garage until after you've already went through the gate.
Yeah, I hear you. So I guess after this whole discussion about religion, I guess it comes down to the final question. Is there a way, do you think, to be able to discuss it at a party or public forum or whatever it may be and end up with a positive result? I will tell you what my thoughts are, but I'd love to hear what yours are.
Oh, well, I don't know. I have been involved with lots of these conversations over the years, and different people through different religions. Like even I was baptized. My mom baptized in like 3 different religions.
I know, yes.
And stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And other people that I said, yeah, they don't believe in God, but they believe in the devil. And I'm going, well, how does that even work? Like that doesn't make any sense at all to me, period, right? But like you're pulling things out of Christianity, and you believe in the negative stuff, but don't believe in the rest of it. Like that's just somebody that really doesn't do any research, I think, anyways. But I don't know. There's the best part out of it is that I've found is that you just don't bring it up.
I think so. That was what was mine was going to be that I think you kind of have to gauge the room, the people that you're in the room with. If you're with some fairly open-minded people, now that's kind of hard to gauge though, because people can be really open-minded. But again, we didn't say we were going to have all the answers with this. We just were going to talk about a few things to give our listeners a little bit of thought. That go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's the thing though, right? Is that do you go to a social gathering and bring in your guitar and start playing guitar and doing this, and like that's the thing is you don't bring up a subject into an area that people aren't there to actually discuss
or receptive to. And yeah. I'll be honest with you, even
that's awareness.
Even what I do for a living, and I'll be very honest with it. Am I embarrassed of it? Am I ashamed of it? No, I'm very, very passionate about what I do. But I also recognize that just because that's my area of interest doesn't necessarily mean that the room that I'm in is open to discussion. So usually it's even bringing up the paranormal because, and jump over there right now. Del and I have lived in this house for almost 11, probably just over 11 years. Been through extreme paranormal activity. Del's been thrown 15 feet, burnt, scratched, you name it. And there's a lot of people we've never even had a discussion with that we know that are quite close to us because we know they would just either never believe it or are not open to hearing about it. They don't believe in it. So at least myself, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, but out of respect for people around me that they may not be open to it. And I understand that. Some people, unless you've never experienced it, you wouldn't believe it. So what's the reason you don't bring it up, Del?
Because it's not a topic that is readily available for anybody to discuss. I'm not a person to go and jump into there. Hey, guess about what happened to me, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even when we filmed our episode for TV, I got to be honest with you, I've heard from more people globally that I didn't know versus people that I do know. And even people that we do know, still had no idea that we'd filmed the episode because, and again, it's not that we're ashamed of it or anything. I think you just got to be careful. And I guess that just jumping back quickly to religion, that again, am I anti-religion? Absolutely not. I was raised Roman Catholic. I tell people they're very open with it. I believe in God. That's my higher power. I believe in whatever, Jesus, the whole bit. I work with angels. That's why the show's called The Angel Rock. But, I'm very respectful. Even when I do a reading with somebody, I've done readings for people that claim to be atheist. And if that's what their belief system is, I'm not here to change it. I figure that they're coming to me for a certain reason, whatever that may be, whatever somebody's beliefs are, they've come to me and I will try and help them when they come for a reading as best as I possibly can and leave it at that. So if we go on to, we talked about, where do you want to go with politics? We said we were going to talk about these three first, politics and religion. So or we did religion, politics and money. Where do you want to go next? The Dell?
Well, I guess the same thing as sorry, my mic's up. With politics, there that goes back to the same thing, almost exactly like religion, right? Because a lot of people you're stuck with voting into parties that you might agree with one thing or nothing, but you're only left with that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? And so a lot of stuff there too is that I remember, well, being up in Canada, is that you voted particular parties as per your stature in life, what you did. Like if you were a union job, you voted for this party. If you were a private businessman, you voted for this party. If you were a farmer and did something, you voted that party. Like it was just all what's going to benefit you, right? I think the big problem with politics and anything that's even here in Canada, and you see it mostly in the States, is that your options are not good, and all you're voting for, either you're voting for the party because that's what you voted and that's what your parents did because you don't do any research and you don't look into it, or you vote what's going to benefit you for work. Everything that you seems to be is that what's going to benefit you. And that's what you want out of it. That's what you want somebody in there that's going to be something that's going to benefit you, where it's not benefiting the whole, right? And that's where I think the big problem with politics happens across the board, because if you look here in Canada across from BC all the way over to the Maritimes, it's a whole different type of social aspects and jobs that happen through there. So something that's going on the East Coast is not relevant to anything that's happening on the West Coast or up in the Northwest Territories or in Southern Ontario. And so when you have only one party to pick from, you're sort of pretty much limited in what you get to pick. And that ends up being a big problem there with people that talk about politics and they get really into it. They only think what they see out of their eyes that's going to affect them there. They don't see the reality of the bigger scope of things. And I don't know, there's not much more you can really say about the politics.
No, I was talking to somebody one time that was an acquaintance of mine, excuse me, and they were single and they were out in the dating field and they happened to meet somebody they really, really clicked with. And they said, well, this just won't work. And I said, well, why not? You've got so much in common. Like, it seems like you were both looking for these type of qualities in each other. And it was because I got to give a shout out. Sorry. Hi, Chris Carr. Thanks for listening. Chris is hanging in here listening to us. So when Dark Horse Paranormal, so I want to give him a shout out. Thank you. Anyways, back to her story. And she said, well, we have differing political views. It'll never work. And I said, are you serious? And she said, absolutely. And I guess it depends where you look at it, but I got to be really honest with you. And Adele and I have very deep philosophical questions about many topics like this, and we don't always agree, but with politics and I really wish sometimes, and again, this is just my view, it's not the station's view, it's not anybody else's view, but if you really look at the whole big picture, and it doesn't matter what country we're talking about, whether we're talking overseas, we're talking North America, South America, any of the continents, when you look at who's in power and who's the other stronger opposing power, if you could just really step back objectively and take a look at the way things were designed, because I've seen a lot of countries really, really with this 50% split down the middle division. And people are fighting with each other over who supports what political party, then kind of looking at the way it all really is, that it's going to be what it's going to be, whoever's in power. And yeah, they're going to make you all these promises. Most of them, at least where I live, I haven't seen most of them come true. Maybe one or two of the things they promised. But have we ever even looked at that? Sometimes it's designed that way to have everybody kind of nitpicking fighting with each other over who supports what political party than stepping back and looking at the big picture here. Because, you've got all these people that are the constituents, if you will. They could just all get together and there'd be so much more power in it. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna say whatever with Canada or the U.S. and even with these other power countries and stuff like that, it seems to be that the people that are put into the position that will be running these countries, and that if you go conspiracy theory, seem to be linked to long-standing families that have always been in sort of power, right, and they're connected by third, fourth, fifth, sixth cousins and stuff like that, but they're all from a sort of the same sort of family connections, and who are they really benefiting? If you're going to go in, I'm looking at it. There's that. Why would you go into office or run in government and stuff like that? It's to do something to make change, but it's also going to make change that benefits you and your family first most, right? There's not a lot of people that are in there to benefit the whole. They may say that they're there to help people, but first off, they're going to do something that's going to make change that's going to benefit them for the most part, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the people are an afterthought.
No, but if you look at it, I think you touched on a really important thing, and I'd never even gone down this rabbit hole. It was actually the Dell that opened my eyes to it, but I don't have the number correct. It's either 407 or 409 families globally actually own 95% of the world's wealth. And I don't know if there's a lot of people out there that realize that when you look at it. And I know when I've even had a few discussions with people that have never realized, look up even its agenda. It used to be Agenda 21. I think it's Agenda 30 now. Is it not on the Red Cross, or is it World Health Organization or Red Cross, about some of the things that they're proposing globally for the world? So, you know what, even as we're talking about all that stuff, I think the thing is, folks, if anything that we talk about, it's not to stir up, anger or anybody disagreeing. What we're trying to say here is maybe do a little bit of homework. When you think, Del, do a little bit of researching, because the stuff we're talking about is really out there. There's that many families that own 95% of the world's wealth, and most of them, like Del said, you go down enough family trees, family lineages, a lot of them are all interrelated altogether. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus of what a lot of these conspiracy channels, if you want to say there, seem to think that way.
Well, what I'm going to say is, and I've said it before, is that we've all, if you've been old enough, I'm going to be 54 in a couple of weeks. If you've ever been in a grocery store from being a small child, even in my age group, and you've been in line at the grocery store, you've seen papers like the National Enquirer, things like that are supposedly have a lot of non-truths in them, I'll say. They've never, ever been removed. Never. If they were that spreading false news or false information, they would have been shut down a long time ago. So to me, and again, I'll put it out there with our listeners, if these are so supposedly conspiracy truths and they're being shut down, and that's even a whole different show we could talk about, because I don't even really believe that we really have free speech anymore. Why are they being shut down? If they're not saying something that they don't want the rest of the people to hear, don't get me wrong, there's some crazy stuff out there, but if you can sift through the stuff and connect the dots, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of stuff to substantiate it, especially with having the internet. What's your thoughts, Still?
Yeah, well, that's the big thing there seems to be control of information. And you've seen that lately with
excuse me.
CNN, I think it also posted there, and I think the Washington Post had also posted something about that Google was suppressing or blacklisting different conspiracy channels. And I think there was also an article that happened a few days ago where the FBI had stated that conspiracy channels are a terrorist threat to national security.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's the whole thing that ends up happening. And you see this pattern that runs through anybody that asks questions or seeks knowledge or wants to get information. The people that control that information or control the flow of that information control the narrative. So when people are going, hey, well, they're putting 1 and 1 together to make 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and they're showing that these patterns or these people are connected, and that crazy stuff is happening. And when that information comes out and it's brought there, the people that are in power, those 1,000 families or whatever that have controlling power, that they don't want that stuff to be known, right? So that goes against anything, because they want to just exist how they want to exist, controlling what they control, running companies. Like, basically, I think the most of the population is just basically just taking up space the way that they look at it. Like, they want your money. They want you to work in debt. Like you even look at it. What do you actually own? Like, do you own your house? Do you own the land that's on that? No, you rent that. You pay taxes on that. If you don't pay your taxes, you lose your house. You never own anything here. You own your clothes that you're wearing on your body, but you don't own any space. You don't own any land anywhere. You rent it. And the people that are in control that own all that stuff, they have that. And there's a lot of false, I guess, ideas out there that you have control, you have the right to say and stuff like that. And you really don't.
Well, I mean, we can even touched on a lot of stuff, like that female politician, Tronvi is her first name, isn't it? The female politician that's running for president U.S. right now. And Pardon?
Tulsi Gabbard?
Yes, sorry. Yes, you've got that right. Sorry. Isn't she suing right now for $50 million? Because right after the political debate, all search records for her in Google went down for 6 hours.
Yeah, her ad revenue, her page on that, they stopped it for 6 hours. And he just said it was my mistake. It was just an algorithm problem. It didn't do anybody else's, but just hers. Right? That's the whole thing, is that a lot of, you see what a lot of channels that either they're outright removed, like remember that Secure Team channel 10 was removed because and it was something that was put along the part that his thumbnails were misleading. Yeah. And which made no sense at all.
No, because they weren't either.
The thumbnails said exactly what it was. But because he had a substantial following and a lot of people reached out.
Names.
Yeah, they sent messages there to bring it back. But if you were a small channel that were saying things like that, they just shut you down. And unless you have
happened to a lot of people, and for our listeners out there who don't know who Secure Team 10 is, he's one of the bigger ufology channels out there, and he's pretty careful about the wording that he uses, even on YouTube with the titles that he puts up. He's really careful. And the thing a lot of people don't understand maybe about YouTube, and I've realized this having a few discussions with a few people, but what happens is after you start to build your channel, after you have over 1,000 views and I think it's 5,000 views and 1,000 followers, what happens is you're eligible for monetization, which means that's why we see a lot on bigger YouTube channels that they have commercials and stuff like that, because that's how the ad revenue is generated. On top of that, once you hit that milestone, you're also eligible when, like, say, during a live chat, somebody that really likes your channel, supports you, believes in what you're doing, has the right to, or maybe they've got a question that's burning and you've got so many people in the live, the questions are just flying by. You can pay something called a super chat, and it will highlight the question for the, say, if Del and I were doing, in the super chat came up and there was a bunch of comments in a bigger channel, then we would see that. And of course, YouTube takes a chunk of that money, but you still get the portion of that. So what happens with these bigger channels, they're not huge, anything over, say, 100,000 usually subscribers or more, they end up being able to support themselves with the revenue from YouTube. So what happens when a channel gets removed, such as we were just talking about Secure Team 10, he supports his family with that. So in essence, if his channel's removed, he's lost all his revenue if he hasn't backed it up in other ways. And there are other ways to do that. But that's why this has been such a big thing. If you've heard about this out in the news, demonetization, or these channels are being shut down. And I think it gets down to the biggest thing here. We're supposed to be living in a civilization where we have free speech. But do we really have free speech? Because you think about it, even now with the Me Too agenda, with anything like that, there's been a lot of people out there, men even, that have had their lives ruined by falsely being accused of, say, sexual assault or sexual harassment. And they've had to they've been proven guilty in the public eye and in the public media, instead of having a fair trial, how it used to be that you're innocent until proven guilty. Wouldn't you agree, Del?
Yeah, that's yep. The public sector or whatever off of social media really accuses first without asking questions, and that's been a big, huge thing. You can even look at that Jussie Smollett case.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody jumped onto that and saying, "Oh yeah, how he was victimized," and then you find out later that it was a hoax.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the people that were standing up for it, they've all quieted down.
Mm-hmm.
All the people supporting it right off the bat, they've all walked away. Where are they now? And that seems to be a lot of things like that. People, like, it's an outrage culture in a way. When something happens, people act and react, and they voice their opinions right off the bat without looking at things and seeing the whole spectrum of the picture. And that ends up happening too with this part there with I guess with why this Me Too movement there sort of went awry in a way, because it was all of a sudden it was believe all women right off the bat, mm-hmm. without finding out the facts of anything. Somebody could just go and accuse somebody of wrongdoing or sexual misconduct and you just all of a sudden, oh yeah, okay, we believe you. But then when they go and look into it, that actually wasn't the case. Not in all cases.
No. Well, I was going to bring up Chris Hardwick. That happened to. He's a comedian. He's he developed Nerdist. He's been the host for After the Walking Dead and the other show. He was falsely accused. He lost his job, I believe, and I think he's since been reinstated. But he was one of those bigger people that this happened to. He was kind of tried in the public opinion before the facts were really known, right?
Yep, that was true. I don't think he lost. They think they just suspended him for a while until they could figure out what was actually going on. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have different people take different sides on what should and shouldn't be. But I don't know. It's just I think just people need to just slow down before they hit their keys first and maybe actually find out the whole facts of the case instead of just running to this outrage right off the bat.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's the biggest thing to remember, and it's kind of the whole reason I think why we had this discussion tonight, is there's always two sides to every story. And the part is too, the reason why I had mentioned he was fired, I guess I was just looking up while we were talking. It said he is finally just being reinstated as the host, to return as the host. So I didn't get a chance to read the whole article, so I apologize if I misspoke that, but I know he was at least suspended. But the problem, and don't get me wrong, I believe this needed to happen, but it's almost like a pendulum that, you know what, it was swung so far to the right about the casting couch in Hollywood. Now it's swung so far to the left, so it's got to kind of go in the middle. But, you know, I think you also brought up a good point, Del, about the fact that, you know, it's so easy to hide behind a keyboard and type really nasty things to people. And, you know, there have been people that have committed suicide with some of these comments, and then after the fact they find out the story and they feel really badly. But the thing is that, you know, these are real people that you're talking to when you're typing these comments or whatever you're saying. And I think that's the biggest point here, is to do your homework, because even going back to YouTube, you know, you may think, even if you have a channel or you don't have a YouTube channel, and you think, well, yeah, okay, the conspiracy theory channels are going to get shut down. Well, what's going to be the next thing? Ufology or paranormal, because we can't always prove that, and then it just starts going further and further down the line. So I don't know what the answer to that is, because you know, most people say when people are in power, you can't stop them, but somehow, some way, sometimes it does work that you can. It's just that you know, to me, I guess my point is, if they're not saying something that's causing any danger to anybody, it's not, this is information, a lot of these channels. And again, don't get me wrong, you're going to get all kinds of spectrum. You're going to get some people that are out there talking about really, really crazy stuff. But then you're going to get some people that have the facts there, that if you connect the dots and you follow it down the rabbit hole, yeah, this is really going on. But how else do you find out about it? Like, I'm even going to go there with the fact that, you know, yeah, we've got some pretty big news conglomerations here, but excuse me, I actually encourage you to take a look at some other news sources over on the other sides of the world. I guarantee you will be shocked what you learn about, or you see, or you hear about, with things that you will never hear over on this side of the world. What do you think, Del?
Yeah, it's suppression of information has been a big hot topic there. I think, what is it? Jeff Bezos just bought the Washington Post, the owner of Amazon. Mm-hmm. Like, what is newspapers for, right? Unless to dictate what is going to be printed into the paper, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And I guess what it's been put down to is that even with news organizations like CNN, Fox, NBC, they're run by parent companies like Walt Disney or Turner or whatever, and they all have, and those companies have their own political ideologies and what they want, right? And so by that, they go and they dictate what is being aired on their channel. So the that you're getting there off of cable news, in a way, is just the news of the owner of the company, what he allows to through. And we've seen this now happen with Google, and this is that part with that Tulsi Gabbard, is why she's making a big deal about this, is that if Google, a private company which runs like a public company, mm-hmm. is dictating rules and terms of service, and they're making decisions on what can and can't be said on there, but it's also being run by, or being used by 90% of the world's population, they are controlling the flow of information. And that's the whole thing. Does a company like that have the right to control and block free speech of information? Whether you agree with what is being said or not, that's besides the fact, but you should be allowed to say what you need to say, and whether you agree with it or not, do you have the right to agree with it or not, and you have the choice to watch it or not, right? Nobody or reading. No one says you have to read that stuff, and that's, I think, where the part that is in there, why a lot of these other groups are like, they put strikes against other people that have a point of view because they don't agree with that person's opinion. You should always have the right to have that person say their opinion. That's just fair conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you agree with them or not, that's besides the point. Whether you respond to them or not, that's besides the point too. You don't have to respond to it. You don't have to watch it, but it's there for anybody else that wants to watch it. If that's the big problem, right? And now what ends up happening is that now you have these companies that are making decisions for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say something that's on there, you wanted to watch a video about I don't know, say Yu-Gi-Oh, and somebody at the company says, well, I don't like Yu-Gi-Oh, and so they block all the Yu-Gi-Oh channels. Who gives to do that, right?
And it would be good if you had the option to go somewhere else to look. But I hear what you're saying when it's one of the biggest. And again, we're not talking about regular, like this radio, like this platform UPRN. That's what I love this type of platform, because we're able to talk about these kind of things or different things. And I guess the main point is I loved everything you said there with the fact that even though you may not agree with it, you still should have the option, because there may be somebody that might be of interest. But, there's people like even Edward Snowden. Had he not come out and did what he did, the world may never have known some of the things that was going on with the fact that, your internet is monitored or that's even a whole different show. But again, some of the things I was touching on, things like what's next, like ufology, the paranormal. And right now, it's a popular opinion because of the TV shows that are out there and that. But what if somebody that is one of the bigger conglomerates decides that, nope, this is enough of this stuff, it's nonsense. Is that right? No, right? Because we're supposed to live in a free speech society.
Well, that too, and the other part, there was I guess I was watching I can't remember what it was, the Corbett Report, or might have been Sam Tripoli's show. They had a bunch of different people on with the ripple effect. And a part that people don't realize, because we don't really look at it anymore, we just put it in as an afterthought, is when you sign up for apps for your phone and you sign this agreement there, you're basically given the right for them to go through your phone and take all your stuff, right? And they go search through your pictures, and they probably take other information as well and put other things in there that's recording your usage and who you're seeing and stuff like that. And they put it into, we don't think about it that they're looking at our emails, which they are, right? But how would you feel if you were getting mail to your house and the government official came to your door and opened up all your letters before you did, and then stuck them back in your mailbox? You'd be pretty outraged, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm going to go a step further that I never thought about, and I'm going to go there with you because the Dell's the guy to go to. He does a lot of research on this stuff, but I never even thought or considered about this. And it's just putting a thought out there. There's fingerprint ID now on your phone. You put your fingerprint in your phone. You just exactly what Dell said. You can go through all the fine print on your phone with the companies, whatever store you use for your apps. You will see that you have given them permission. They now have your fingerprint. They now have, or when a lot of people are doing the 1, 2, 3 and me DNA. Where does that go? And again, people, they'll say, oh, no, I've read the agreement. It's not going anywhere. Well, you know what, folks? There's been, there was BTK, serial killer that, they weren't able to capture for 23 years. I think it was him. I'm positive it was, that they ended up finally convicting him with the DNA evidence from one of the smaller DNA companies that a relative had submitted DNA to. So when you give over stuff like this, you're giving over, I don't know, your personal identity. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. That's I don't agree with that period about that 23andMe. Like I would never give away my information, my fingerprint, my retinal scan. Well, I did do that once for Bank of Montreal back a long time ago, just to get into the building for doing a job. But afterwards, asked for the
people you're a rebar person. That's why and you needed to. It was top security, but you still had to.
Yeah.
but you're giving away your personal identification things that if somebody showed up at your door and said, give your fingerprint, you don't think about it, but you think, oh, this is so cool. It's my app on my phone. I'll just put and I probably would have done it had I not been with the Dell. I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But these are things, I guess, why we did this show tonight, get people to think about these things that a lot of people really don't consider, right?
Yeah. Well, any part that you give away your information that you don't have control of it anymore and it goes somewhere else, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you look about what you're getting with your smartphone and why they made them so great with all these great apps, and that was like giving you the flowers before you walk through the door. It's already too late already. Once you've already gone through the gate, you've given away everything. Like, you got to figure, if you're using your smartphone or if you're using your computer and you use it for any type of banking information, and then with the smartphones, they have taken pictures of your face. Now they have facial recognition. They have your fingerprint. And if you do the 23andMe or the other one, or Ancestry.com or whatever, where you've given blood or saliva, you've given this record to another company. And there's no saying that. They can say all they want is that, yes, this information is private and it's not given out. That's what they can say. But when the information is gone, they go, oh, my bad. Sorry. Like,
or the Mormons. I did not know this till you told me this. They have the biggest genealogy records that's ever. How far back have they gone? Like you said, I remember you've done some research on this.
Yeah.
How far back do they go? Like, they have the biggest conglomerate. They're the ones behind, I think, Ancestry.com and stuff, why they're able to provide some of that information for the family trees. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, I'm not sure if what company they're with there, but I know that they do have a vault, and it's inside of a mountain, and that holds all the records of everybody that they've gone and searched through, genealogical records that people have gone and asked for searches for, and they keep all of that. And this is the part that was brought out there before, is that the U.S. government, the CIA, was looking about getting a recognition software that would catalog everybody that was in there. It didn't get passed through Congress at all. It got dropped. But the day that it got dropped is the day that Facebook started.
Ah, okay. Facebook. Well, we can even go to Facebook, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, I'm not using Facebook anymore. It doesn't matter what social app you use, but we all know this. Like, I even actually won an Amazon Echo Dot. I don't have it plugged in anymore, because I'm telling you, there's no way that thing was not listening to me. You could be talking about the most obscure thing, and usually if you're on Facebook, there would be an ad that would show up within 30 seconds afterwards. So, as we get more and more conveniences, I don't think people consider the implications of what we give away. And like I said, I think you had a really good analogy, Del, when you said that, if your mail showed up at your door and it was opened, everything was censored before your mail was delivered to your door and opened, you'd be pretty PO'd. But people don't consider this because it's on their smartphone, and even the fact that your whole house is controlled. Like, I'm even going to go there with this, because Del and I have talked, we've done some shows, probably will do some on this network as well, about prepping. God forbid that, because if you think about it, all it's really going to take is for the internet to go out. All of our finances, everything is controlled by the internet, our power, our water, every infrastructure. And you touched on the fact about, a lot of people might argue with you, well, you don't really own your house if you've got a mortgage or whatever you do. If that all goes out and all those records get wiped out, how do you prove anything? Yeah, you might have a deed to your house, but who are you going to give it to, or who are you going to show it to? How are you going to prove all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, we've gone too quickly to digital, and this is where I guess that my thought on it, anyways, is that the majority of the population of the Earth got basically rooked. They didn't understand the implication of what they were getting into when they went on there, like I said, with like your phone and stuff like that, nobody reads those agreements that you sign when you agree to get that app, right? You can go into use your phone and you can turn off everything and that, but then you get a very limited phone. You don't get all the bells and whistles that you would do if you just agreed to the licensing agreement. Because do you remember there when I went through with the iCloud there?
I was going to bring this up. Yeah, I'm glad you did. You read my mind. Go ahead, Del. You can share what happened.
Yeah, so I kept on information I was going in there, and I deleted a whole bunch of stuff out of iCloud, and they kept on asking me to expand my usage or my cloud space, storage space all the time. It's like, okay, no, I'll just delete all that stuff out of there. I don't need it. And I saved it, backed everything up on a separate hard drive, go in there, and everything I deleted 2 days later, go back in there, and it's all still there again.
That's just it. And we've seen this a few years ago when certain celebrities, I think it was a lot of females in particular, had taken some private pictures with their, significant other and deleted them thinking they were gone. And somebody was able to hack into the cloud, and those pictures never go away. For example, I'll show you folks, like this phone I have right here. It's 32 gigabytes. I only use it for a few things. It's almost full because of my pictures in iCloud, and you can't delete them. They don't go. Because like I said, the Dell tried it. He fought it for about a month, I think. He tried everything.
Well, I fought it for 8 months.
Was it 8 months? I remember. And there was nothing, like even to the point of trying to even use it for phone, like to make phone calls, or if you wanted to capture a picture while you wrote anything at all, he had to be signed in because he has an iPhone. But we also have somebody in the house that's got an Android phone. So these are things to think about. And like I said, the reason why we brought up these three topics, it wasn't to stir up any anger or discord or upset. It was just to maybe get you guys to, if you're listening, and I hope you are, or you're listening on the replay, and if you've got some thoughts on this, I should remind you about the phone number. Sorry, if you want to call in and you've got any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. The phone number, just let me find it here. It's 504-273-7379. But I do want to read the comment per Chris from Dark Horse Paranormal. So I hope he's still listening out there, and thanks for supporting us tonight, Chris. He's also involved in the paranormal, and when we were talking about it earlier, he had said it's hard not to sound crazy to someone who doesn't believe or hasn't had the experience with the paranormal. So I have to agree with you, Chris. I really do. I meet a lot of people. Actually, I've met a lot of people that have been really respectful with the fact that they may not believe in it, but they're open to it. But I don't try to make somebody a believer. But what we've done over the years, because this was such a crazy story, is we have documented pictures, video, EVPs. There are other people that have experienced activity in our home, whether there's another host on the radio that's I call my PIC, a good friend of mine, Seraphine Hurley. She's been punched twice while she's been talking to me while there's been activity in the house. So how does that happen? So again, I never ever try and make a believer out of people, but you haven't really shared your experiences either with any of your friends or family members either, right, Del?
No, not at all though. Like if I don't bring it up to anybody, and it's not anything that I'm
excuse me,
or willing to like go out and talk, hey, guess what happened to me, and bring up the subject, because a lot of people are very wary about anything like that. And it's not anything about feeling that, hey, they're going to think I'm a nut or anything like that, but it just doesn't fit into my day-to-day conversation with my friends about, hey, said we had spooky occurrences at the house and this is what happened, and that is like, I'm not looking for any fame out of it or anything like that. It's just something happened and it's unexplainable, and just get on with life and stuff like that. And I
will tell you that Del, even after everything we've been through, will debunk it 6 ways to Sundays before he'll even consider that something strange might be going on. And with that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like that's the thing, is that my motto is W5A, question everything. and find out other things that you can find out. And I'm always open to hear something that I didn't even think about. Like, I don't know everything, and all I can do is relate to the experiences, what I experienced, to the knowledge that I've amassed over the course of my life and through things that I've read and learned and heard. And I can only base my best observation and give my opinion of what I've experienced. So I don't go out to go and find people and to go and relay this to, and I don't do that to my friends either. So if they bring something up and they're talking about something, I'll bring up, hey, about a situation, but I'm not here to go and preach to them or tell them anything.
No, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. The same as me, mostly locally. Most of my friends usually are within the field that I'm working in, or I always say I never went looking for the paranormal. The paranormal found me. And actually, there's a really good thing. Del and I have known each other our whole lives, but when we got together and we were hanging out, I had just become a certified angel card reader, and I remember saying to the Del, the only reason I'm doing angel cards is because they're all positive. They're just about love and light. That's all there is. I want nothing to do with the negative. And I still remember this as clear as it was many years ago. He said to me, Laura, if you're going to be working with this stuff, you're going to have to know both ends of the spectrum to be able to know what you're dealing with. And he's absolutely right, because if you think about it, we live in a world of duality. We live in a world of light. There's dark, there's good, there's bad, there's cold, there's hot. It's just the way this existence is on this planet. And again, you probably heard me say this on a few of my shows already, but I truly believe everything is energy. And again, energy doesn't know the difference between. Also registered nurse. I worked in out in the community in one of the most lowest economic areas of our city. A lot of murder, a lot of suicide, a lot of despair, drug abuse. There was a lot of aggression. And again, I had wonderful patients, but people can have something attached and not even realize they have something attached. And when they pass away, it's energy. And as we know, even the laws of energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can be transferred from one place to another. Did something follow me home? I don't know. That's the only reason I can think maybe something happened in this house. Again, I don't think we'll ever know all the answers until we leave this earth for ourselves. What's your thoughts, Del, when it comes to especially stuff like this? I mean, science is starting to make a little bit of headway with this, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, why things happen? Well, there's several reasons why things can happen. Either you're calling for it to happen, or it's been sent to you to happen, or it just happens to be there and you're luck of the draw, you're there at the same time something happens. So to understand the why is almost as much as to understand why.
Yeah, why? Exactly. So if any of you are out there, if you've had any experiences with the paranormal, we'd love to hear about it. Or if you'd like to get a reading from, I've got God, how many decks have I got here? I think I got about at least 10 decks here. If you want a message from Spirit, you can feel free to call in. One of these days, I'm going to memorize this number. I'll give you the number again. Where did I have it? It's lit up. That's why I can't find it. It's 504-273-7379 if you'd like to call in, or if you're just tuning in, just to let you know you're listening live to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Laura Lee Potvin, with my special guest, who's my husband as well. We call him the Del. We're just talking about a lot of different kind of topics tonight, some conspiracy theory, a little bit of religion, a little bit of politics, a little bit of money, a little bit of the paranormal. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. We're also live on the UPRN YouTube channel. There's a live chat room. We'd love to hear from you in there. If you've got any questions or comments that you'd like to share with us, we'd love to hear from you. So getting back to our topic that we said we were going to kind of have a little bit of a potpourri with all of this stuff. Anything else that you've been thinking about in the way of conspiracy theories that are kind of out there that have kind of been in the news a little bit, Bill?
Conspiracy theories, eh?
Yeah.
Well, not anything really offhand. A lot of stuff that's sort of been happening is just as people have been talking about is the conspiracies with the UFOs. That's been a big, huge buzz going around there with people seeing more UFOs or in the sky. And the big thing is though is that I always tell people is that UFOs just mean unidentified flying object. It doesn't mean alien. So
Mm-hmm.
the part is about understanding is about it's unidentified and you saw something in the sky, whether it is ball lightning, whether it is some sort of energy flow, maybe it might be a government ship, maybe it might be something paranormal, maybe it might be something off-world, extraterrestrial. You don't know, but that's why it's unidentified. It just doesn't mean that it's alien. And I guess that's
I think that's a good point. I've actually had this conversation with Joe Montaldo, the owner of the station, producing me tonight as well. And he brought up almost the same kind of point with you, that people are always jumping to the fact that it's aliens right away. So my first question to you is, why do you think people are seeing more and more of these UFOs? Have you heard any theories out there about maybe why we're seeing more of them?
not that we're seeing. Well, I guess there's more people have cameras now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I said to you a few months ago, is that with technology advancing as fast as it is right now, almost every phone that people have has a camera on it or some sort of recording device on it. And people with the internet, the information is going around a lot more, and people are seeing things and actually are, instead of looking at their shoes, are actually looking up a little bit more, like weird cloud formations, looking up and noticing stuff that sort of, I guess in a way is, I'm not going to say that people are becoming more aware, but just maybe looking around a little bit more than what they did before. And you do have readily a device around you available. Now, are all these things unidentified? Yes, and maybe they could be, but also a lot of people, you got to figure, a lot of people like to hoax things, and with a computer software and that, you can go and insert images anywhere. Like you see how they have like that face changing software now, where you can sort of age yourself or put your face on, make yourself a woman or
And voices in the voice software.
You can insert pictures, into video. I spent like a month there just watching YouTube videos on how to insert objects into video, and that was pretty fascinating in what they can do. And you got to figure the government with their computers probably has systems that work way better, way faster, and probably a lot better than what we have. And same thing with these flying objects. Like drones are around all over the place now. It only became big topic maybe about, well, after the last sort of war where they came into the news a little bit more, but people can just buy drones off the internet. And I've seen videos where companies have put up 100 drones and made pictures in the air with lights and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And people are experimenting all over the place, and people are doing things all over the place and then filming it and saying that it's something else, right? A lot of people are trying, like it's almost like trying to chase Bigfoot, right? Like you're always there, people have pictures from far away what it is, but no one's actually capturing the real image, which I always find sort of really interesting, because with all this technology, and I think I actually even called one of those Bigfoot research places, and they had said there, yes, we have sightings of Bigfoot around this area. It's a pretty hotbed of activity. And I said, okay, if that's a hotbed of activity and it's happening around this area all the time, why don't you leave cameras with infrared set up off of the building, pointing in the direction that it is, and leave it run there 24 hours a day for a year if that's where stuff is happening all the time, right? Just like our security cameras that we have in the front of the house, they're running all the time, right? If something's happening, you're going to catch it, right? But none of these TV shows or these alien shows or these paranormal shows ever do that, never set up a long-term camera, or the people that have that household area set up long-term cameras to capture this sort of stuff. So it always gives you that sort of that part is, why wouldn't they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Either that they're telling a fake story
Mm-hmm. Or
to sell a show.
mm-hmm.
It can't be that they didn't think about it, because that's would make I don't know what it would be. Mostly I think it all comes down to De Niro's money, right? Somebody wants to be money.
Yeah, but look what happened with us. And we've had this happen with us. When the paranormal activity started at our house, our cameras will not record. We've had the machine in, try and get it fixed. We try to figure out what's wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with the machine. That's happened though with our oven when it was brand new. The element went out in the bottom. Nothing wrong with it. They keep saying they don't know why it won't work. So what we do have though, and Della is right, we have the security monitors all on in our bedroom. There's usually somebody always in there. So what we've had to do is take a picture actually, or film it off of the monitor to prove. That's the only way we've been able to prove it. But I do think you are right. But when you even go back to say our episode, right? They interviewed us for what was it, 5, almost 6 hours, for our show. We told them everything. We gave them pictures. We gave them all kinds of stuff. And then, the Dell was he was able to use the original spelling of his last name that before it was changed, before it was your grandfather when he came here.
Yeah, besides the point, it doesn't matter.
Okay, no, but what I was going to say, there's a reason why I mentioned this, is so my name's on there, so I get a lot of the people contacting me, and I've gotten some pretty nasty comments from people saying, well, I see you're a psychic medium. I was going to offer to help you. Why did, you never mentioned that, or you never said this. We didn't have any say in what went on in the episode. I've watched it maybe twice, and you can tell from watching it, and I understand why they're doing it. They're out to sell a story and tell a story. So what they did was they spliced bits and pieces of what we did in the interview to make up what they wanted to tell in the story. We actually have 4 main entities in our house, not just one. So there was a lot of stuff with that. And so I hear what you're saying with these TV shows. I think what people need to keep in mind is reality TV is not reality TV. Does it come down to money? I don't know, because that makes common sense to me too. Why would you not have a camera always running if you know it's a hotbed of activity? Leave it up running. There's enough technology out there that it should be able to, with solar power or whatever, be able to keep the battery going. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Especially if well, you'll watch on many of these paranormal shows or these shows about cryptids and stuff like that, of Bigfoot or like the swamp beast or whatever, the devil dogs and stuff like that.
Dogman.
And people will say, oh yeah, it comes by here about every so many days and it does this and that. It says, okay, well, why wouldn't you just set up a camera? You've already contacted these people. Like, why wouldn't they just set up a camera and just leave one there running there all the time? They're not that expensive. They have to run one. Like, I think I got an extra security camera with recorder. It records for 32 days straight, 24 hours a day. And it's just plug it into the wall socket and hook the camera up, and it runs there. And then you just take that card out, stick another one in, and you can go and search all that information, right? It's not that you're buying like a huge $10,000 system of cameras and recording equipment. You're just setting up something that has night vision on it, so you can film when the sun goes down, and it runs all day long. And if there's something happening, you'd be able to catch it, right? So that's one big problem that not a problem, but that's one thing I see on a lot of these shows that are on TV, is that they're not out to actually find anything. They're just out there to make a name for themselves so they can sell tickets at Paranormal Expo.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I think there's a lot of people out there that have seen things. Like I'm going to go back to YouTube. There's a channel I've been following. It's called Noop's Top 5. And what he does is he actually gets videos sent in from people that watch there's quite a few people that he's had compelling stories on that he's followed. He'll share their YouTube channel. You can go to it. There's one couple in particular. I think it's called Mandy's Ghost or something. This is a pretty creepy story. Have you seen that one yet?
No, I do believe some people have caught some things on there that is hard to explain. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, this one, I'll tell you about this one. I think it's Mandy's Monster or Mandy's Ghost. And what they are is it's this couple that bought this house. And ever since they moved in there, they're out there. You can see them on the YouTube channel. Could they fake it? Yeah, you can always fake it depending on how much knowledge you have. Really strange, weird, crazy noises. And there's been lots of times they've been taking video out in the dark while the noise is out there. And you're catching these glowing eyes, and then they've taken video of the footprints. It's these long, narrow footprints. And so a lot of people were being pretty awful to them, saying, oh, you're faking this. Why don't you just move if it's so bad? And so what they did was they actually moved out. I don't know, they live in a bigger city, so they moved out somewhere near the beach. It was far away from their house. This thing has followed them. They've caught it on camera. I don't know what it is. Could it be a rake? Could it be alien? What could it be? It's something white, and it's got these big eyes. It's never done something, knock on wood, for them to harm them, but it has wrecked their property. It has wrecked their neighbor's property. They've even had the new neighbors from being out at the beach area come on camera. They've agreed to come on and talk about what's happened since they've moved in there. So there are people that are going through stuff like this. So where's it coming from? That's what I'd like to know. Where are they coming from and why?
Well, I'm not discounting all activity and stuff like that as being all faked or hoaxed, but I am very suspicious about a lot of stuff. But that's just having a healthy questioning mind, knowing
that's true.
all the different technologies out there that can reproduce things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are out there to make a buck or become famous, mm-hmm. right? And to get onto whatever they want to maybe become famous in their own way. Mm-hmm. You have to have some sort of a little bit of a skepticism for it. I don't deny it, but I do question a lot of things. And that's just me, but that's my opinion.
There's nothing wrong with that, like I said, but you know what? And then people have said to us, why don't you move? There's so many reasons why we haven't. Sometimes when you're going through stuff like this, and most people I've met that have been going through a lot of oppression with paranormal activity, it'll affect you health-wise, it'll affect you finance-wise. There's a whole bunch of things, the reasons why we have been unable to move. So, because that's the first thing people will say, well, why don't you move? Well, if you could move, you would move. So, like I said, I guess the main thing to me was there's got to be a reason. Like you said, is there people looking up more? Is it because they have, everybody, like you said, has a camera on their phone and they're more, not necessarily aware, but they're taking a look around rather than just putting one foot in front of the other? Or I've often wondered why people are seeing more of this. Or then again, is it because we're focusing our energy and attention on these type of things that it's happening? I don't know. I don't know if you have any other theories as to why this is happening, because people are definitely seeing a lot more of this type of stuff or strange phenomena.
Well, I think
always there.
Well, I think all this stuff has probably happened, and the thing is that, like I said, with the availability of information to be out there where you can search for it, people are being more aware of these things going on, and people are posting more. You got to figure 20 years ago, mm-hmm. The internet was basically in its infancy, and there wasn't lots of sites where you could just go and post things to. Right? And not everybody had computers back then. Now everybody and their dog has a computer. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, yeah, that could be it, I guess. Yeah, better information sharing, or I don't know. So I guess my next question is, do you think that they'll ever divulge that there is the existence or possibility of aliens?
Who will divulge?
The powers that be, or governments, whoever. Do you think they'll ever divulge? When you've got people like we've got Mr. Hellier there from Canada, who spoke about that he's in his 90s now, that he definitely has signed affidavits and said that they're definitely Paul Hellier, that there
Yeah.
definitely is aliens. So when are they going to tell us? Do you think they ever will?
Nope.
No. And what's your thoughts on why they won't tell us?
Because it doesn't serve any purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
What is the purpose for them to say anything unless it doesn't serve anybody in the continental U.S., North America, Europe, and stuff like that, for them to say, "Oh yeah, we've been working with aliens for 50 years." What is that gonna? Oh, hey, yeah. So what are the people gonna say? Hey, we were right. Okay, so you're right. What is that? What is that? What does that gain you out of anything?
Or do you think maybe they don't know much about them, that there's not much they can do anyways? Like if people could say, why are they here? We don't know. Why, well, are any of them bad? We don't know. Are any of them, what are you going to do if, say, there was an alien invasion? We don't know. So they really don't have answers for the people besides that too. Never mind that there's nothing to, like you said, I think that's a really good point. It doesn't serve any agenda to put it out there.
Yeah, see, I have lots of theories to why other things are going on. Like, I don't know. Like, one of my theories is that there is huge underground structures all through North America and Europe and Russia and stuff like that, where there's probably millions of people underneath the ground there. Maybe they're working in with alien technology and aliens. Maybe they're traveling off and doing other things away from what the general public up on top is doing. And so it doesn't serve any purpose of telling the people that are on top of the ground there what's going on. But I don't understand. Like I can't see what the purpose of what it'll accomplish. It'll be like, hey, yeah, okay, you were right. Okay, yeah. So what are you going to do with that information? How does that change anything?
It doesn't, but I guess then I got to go to your point about with all these underground cities that we've talked, you and I've had many discussions about it. Why do these exist? Why do you think they're there? Because as I understand it, I've seen pictures of the highways and tunnels, and apparently there's stores, there's everything you could possibly need underneath. But why are they there?
To suit some other purpose that we have not been told what it is.
Okay.
Because we don't fit into that agenda or that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought about this as like, okay, so they tell everybody that, yes, okay, there is UFOs and stuff like that. So what does that do to the people? Hey, well, they always keep on giving these situations that, well, if people find out about UFOs, that there's other life out there, that the powerful countries that have are not as powerful and have more technology than that we're lacking in that we're not, we can't protect ourselves, right? They say, okay, well, everybody's going to go amiss. They're not going to pay their bills. They're not going to do whatever. They're not going to respect anything, right? They always give these dark horse scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I could say this is okay. So maybe there is alien life, or maybe they've tapped the way to go into other dimensions or whatever. These things are traveling through dimensions. I don't know. Like, these are all just speculations. They're all just theories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what purpose how does that benefit me in any which way, shape, or form out of it? That I have the knowledge that, okay, well, now I know is that the government is lies. You can't trust the government any more than you can trust them now, and now you really can't trust it because they've been bold-faced lying to you the whole way through. So what does that purpose serve? It doesn't serve the government any good purpose that all the inhabitants of the country knows that the government's a liar and all government agencies lie, right? What purpose does that serve them? So why?
Yeah, that's true.
right? That doesn't it's not a winning solution for them, period, to acknowledge anything. So the best way to do is you just deny,
Yeah, I
deny,
guess. Right.
and then at the end when it all comes out, whatever this is, oh yeah, you were right back then, my bad.
Mhm.
Right? What do you do? What are you gonna throw them in jail? Like,
No, you can't. No, but I guess I don't know. And it's the questioning minds. I mean, we didn't. You kind of brought up a little bit about CERN. Like, there's things going on that people know about, but I guess it's better to have the conspiracy theories out there. And even the conspiracy theory, as I understand it, that term came from when JFK was assassinated, and it was people that actually knew what the truth was, but to discredit them. That's where this term came from. Have you heard that before?
well, yeah, that's sort of part of it there, but like a conspiracy was when two or more people have an idea that something is different than what the normal narrative is, right? When they're questioning what the truth is, that's where, and then now it's been taken to a part where conspiracy theorist is a negative, and you're a nut bar for if you're labeled a conspiracy theorist. I always think that I'd say is as a conspiracy realist,
Yeah. Or a
right?
truther?
Observational realist,
Yeah.
like something is different than what you're being told, whether it's conspiracy or not. Like you think about it is that anybody that's in power doesn't want to usurp their power, right? They
Mhm.
want to maintain power. So anything that's gonna go that's benefiting them right then, they don't want to go and give anything away, right? They want the
Yeah.
weak and them to stay in power, and that's the way the world has worked all the way through. Always somebody is in power, and the rest of the sheeple serve that power, and that's
Mhm.
how it's always been. There'll never be a utopia where everyone's equal. That's an impossibility in this earth. In my earth, if
Mhm.
I get to rule everything, it'll be awesome because everybody.
I don't know if you could ever have that, though. You'd have to have people agree to disagree. And yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to see it in this lifetime. That's for sure with a utopia. It would be nice.
Right? It's like, and they always give you things is that by knowing, right? It's always been on the, like if you use the Star Trek term, right? The prime directive, we don't interfere, right?
Yeah.
So otherwise it'll cause mass hysteria. Well, that's just somebody's opinion. That's what it might do. Maybe it wouldn't do that, but
Hmm.
people are making those decisions for you
Hmm.
without even asking you. And that's what the big problem is. And that's where I think what the part that a lot of conspiracy theorists why they go into this is because you are in a way being lied to the whole time, and you want to suss out that lie and find out the reason why they're lying to you.
Hmm.
Like I've told you before, right? Is that we all come into this world the same way through
Hmm.
and so no,
Yes, I know. We're all born the same way.
yeah, so everybody is entered this world the same way. No one is better or worse unless you were hatched in a test tube or whatever, that you're different from the rest of us. But some people feel that they need to have controlling power, and they like to maintain that power. And
Hmm.
by doing that is the thing that keeps them in power is knowledge and information. Suppression of knowledge and information maintains the power structure that allows these people, and I'll say whatever, these, them, whatever you want to call these controlling families that own 1% or 99% of the wealth of the world, allows them to do what they want to do, maintain their power and anonymity. They get to do whatever they want, and they get to feed off of the work of the people that don't understand the game.
Hmm. That's actually a good word, the game. The game. Hmm. Yeah, I guess. It would be nice if you could solve all the world's problems in one evening, wouldn't it? But then again, you know what? That's one thing I've never understood is why. Hey, this will give people a little bit of food for thought. Why so many people feel like you need a leader. But even you've said this yourself, you can have an organization and you can have 5 different leaders. It's not going to work either, is it? When you got an organization.
Well, that goes back to the whole thing there, back to I guess if you look at it, the start of time, right? Mm-hmm. Is that somebody comes up with an idea or that works, okay? And another group or another person will be over there is that, hey, why is that working for you? Can you teach me how to make that work? I will follow you. So now you've automatically created a leader to follow, right? Mm-hmm. So say, like I said, like back to the fishing analogy, somebody is out there, you're starving and you've seen this person catch fish after fish. So you learn from him and you follow him and you learn from him to do that. So you've already created a hierarchy of learning, because you're learning from that person. And then somebody else comes by and says, well, hey, what are you doing? Well, I'm learning from this person. Well, I'll come along and learn from. Now you have a group following one person, right? Mm-hmm. The whole thing is that people follow people is either they join groups is for safety, they join it for knowledge. But the thing is that the knowledge is, you only get as much knowledge and information is from the person that's giving it to you. And if they have a warped sense of understanding or knowledge or views on stuff, you end up learning those warped senses of views. And unless you can suss out yourself and ask the questions yourself and find your own reasons and own understanding, you'll always just be regurgitating somebody else's knowledge. Until you can actually think for yourself and go and search that knowledge, and instead of just listening to don't listen to me, just go find your own stuff. Go research as many different people, get as many points of view, period, and then come to your own understanding. And that's what I tell everybody. It says, don't believe me. Go find out the information yourself. I'll show you where different places where I've looked. Maybe you can find other ones too as well. Then take all that stuff there. A lot of it will be garbage. Some will be good. Some will be garbage. Maybe it'll be all garbage. Maybe it's all good. But you have to come to your own understanding for yourself that makes you have your own opinion. Don't take somebody else's opinion for anything, and don't be a sheeple. Be your own person. Be your own shepherd, your own wolf, your own Ronin. Be your own whatever. Don't be a follower. That's the thing I could say most people should learn from and do.
Well, no, I have to agree with you, because that's one of the things I do teach as even a spiritual teacher is knowledge is empowering. And what I mean by that is once you're able to understand and put the facts together and learn for yourself, and nobody's saying create an uprising or anything with it, but once you find your own truth and you find out the answers for yourself, that, and if it makes sense and it seems to work and it resonates with you, it might give you a different perspective on things, or I think that's even how we develop new technology. We develop new ideas, is somebody looks at the old way and says, hey, I got a better idea how that'll work, right? And so that's kind of how. Go ahead.
Is like to understand something, you have to know nothing.
To understand something, you have to know nothing. You're gonna have to explain that one to me. I don't think I quite understand what you mean by that.
Right? If you don't understand everything, you don't understand all the possibilities, right? Mm-hmm. Then you can't understand something. You have to look out. You have to look at all possibilities, right? You don't look what's inside the box. You look also what's around the box. Where is the box, right? That's the whole thing about gaining knowledge and understanding, is you just can't be closed-minded and just look straight in front of you. You have to be aware of everything.
No, and I think, you have taught me that even in your surroundings, looking around you, there's things you'll notice. I was just taking a mini course on remote viewing, and one of the big points that she brought up was every time you walk into a new room, ask inside your head what's different, and take note with all your senses of what's in the room. It doesn't take very long, and a lot of people don't do that. I know you do that. I often thought when I first met you, it would be exhausting to live inside your head, and then I thought he's never thought any differently, but it is a way to do that. And the reason why she had suggested this as part of starting even with something called remote viewing, which I hope to do a show on. Actually, I'm hoping to have her on my show, Lori Williams. She's worked with, she teaches controlled remote viewing, which was taught in the military. And part of the reason for that is she says you start training that part of your brain, the subconscious, to take notice of something that's different, that you start pulling it in to start taking notice of your surroundings. And she actually gave the example of somebody that she had known that had walked into their house, put the key in the door after doing this practice for quite a few months, and before they even thought, they had already run back into the car, shut the door, turned the key, and was driving away till they realized why their subconscious had already alerted them to. They had taken note that there was a difference within the house, that the house had been broken into. And it was like a safety thing. So I hear what you're saying. Well, we are just about out of time here. So, Adele, if anybody wants to contact you to ask you about anything you talked about tonight, is there any place they can find you?
Anywhere they can find me.
Anywhere they can find you? Well, I thought I'd give you the opportunity. I do want to think. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm on Facebook anyway, so.
Or if you can't find them, you can always message me too. I'll be able to pass along the message since we live in the same house.
That's true.
Yes,
well, they can find you, they can find me.
That's right. That's usually what happens. So I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I want to thank you all for listening. And like I said, if you have any comments or questions, feel free. You can always get a hold of me. I am, just to let you know a little bit more about myself again, I'm the host, Laura Lee Potvin. I'm a psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, medical intuitive, soon to be Akashic record practitioner, spiritual teacher. I also have a YouTube channel here on YouTube as well under the Angel Rock with Laura Lee Potvin. You can also find me on Facebook on my business page, The Angel Rock. I also have 2 active groups on Facebook, Paranormal University, which deals with all things paranormal, some conspiracy theory, so anything from UFOs to cryptids to hauntings to entities to anything like that. We've got a pretty big group that's from all over the world, some really, really well-known people. So if that's something, you know, kind of right up your alley, feel free to send me an invite to the group. I also have another group on Facebook called the Angel Rocker Tribe. Excuse me, and that's for anything people may be looking at in the way of spirituality, things like chakras or spirit guides or meditation. That's where all that stuff is covered. And again, we have a really vast, wide variety of people. I think both groups are well over 700 now. So send me an invite if that's kind of something up your bag as well. Lastly, if you ever want to get a hold of me, you've got a show idea, maybe you've got a guest idea, or again, questions, comments, feel free to get a hold of me on my email, which is theangelrock1508@gmail.com. And I want to thank you for being here tonight. I also want to thank Del, my guest, and I want to thank Joe Montaldo for producing my show for me. Thank you very much. And we will see you here next Monday, 10 p.m. to midnight Central Time, next Monday again. So have a beautiful rest of your evening or day, wherever you may be. And I wish you a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Monday. Much love and light.